welcome to all our viewers for our, thanks for joining in the DQ 40 years journey. And today we have with us, someone who was there at the start, who was there at the very beginning. I present to you Sunil Agarwal, the very first editor of Dataquest. Welcome, Sunil.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll get to it. I'm like very curious because like this was 40 years back. And one thing in 1982, I think 99% of Indians hadn't even heard of the term IT. So I'm just wondering what an IT magazine was being launched in 82, how you ended up there, how was the launch like, what was the reaction of the industry, readers, etc.
Pradeep Gupta met me in Bombay, where I was working in rediffusion advertising in around August or maybe July 1982. And he said he had heard through a mutual professor that I might be a good candidate for the editor of the first computer magazine that he was launching. I mean, he was the entrepreneur. So he approached me and I listened to him. And I was not doing very well in my job because I'm not the corporate types. So I realized that, look, this is going to be a very average career for me. So I said, let me at least get out and try something and fail at something else. So I jumped at the chance and came to Delhi to be with him. And he's just about the smartest guy I've met in my life. And I was really, as I got to know him, and I got to know him very well, I realized how visionary, how great his networking skills are, how great his eye for numbers are. He is an absolutely amazing, I would say he's at the genius level. So, and I thought I was smart. So we got started, and I had no idea of what editing meant apart from proofreading. I had no idea of what writing meant. I'd never written in my life. I had no idea about computers apart from what I'd learned at the IIT and IIM, which was programming. So we got started, and I learned the ropes from Pradeep Gupta. He took me around to cover designers, to so the first issue that was produced, I was more the execution guy. I was really doing what he said should be done while tagging along with him and doing the execution. He literally was doing everything. Then slowly I started developing my own enthusiasm and confidence. And I remember the first editorial I wrote. It had words like bewildering array. That phrase was taken from a foreign computer magazine because it sounded good. I remember it had something like some anecdotes within that, which I had also taken from some foreign computer magazines because I couldn't write and I had no confidence and I had to write this stuff and I was sweating. Anyway, the first issue came out and it was extremely successful. And then there was a guy who kept selling the subscriptions by going from one IT department to the other. Now, that was a big thing because all IT departments of companies, they had a budget for publications. And an Indian publication for computers got subscribed to immediately. So the initial, and we used to wait at the letterbox, waiting for about 10, 12 subscriptions and 72 rupee checks, which was the annual subscription to be pouring. Then I got started with my advertising skills. Because see, the main source of revenues for a computer magazine or any magazine is advertising. And I went to Bombay, I went to various advertisers in Delhi. And I was then, I had my confidence that look, the magazine is good for them because it's reaching the IT departments. And if you're selling computers, you'll only sell it to IT departments. Now, with that conviction, they started putting in ads, and the ad rate was at that time 3,000 rupees. And our break even was, I think, 8 ads or something. Our break even was this thing. And I was pretty good at convincing people because I believed in it, that even though the circulation was small, at that time it was some 5,000, we were printing 5,000, and most of them were given free. But it was reaching the right people because the premise was it has to reach people who will buy computers. And at that time, the total sales of the entire computer industry was 100 and something crores. So we got advertisers really quickly. And I would say my main contribution to the magazine was not in editing the magazine because that other people were doing. It was not in writing because that is what other people were doing. It was in getting the revenues. So I was the marketing and sales manager. Why marketing manager? Because I got hold of this idea that it has to be something that the manufacturers want. And there were only 15 manufacturers in the country. So my job was to interview them and ask them, so exactly who do you want to reach? Because we can't print more. Every magazine we print, we lose money. So if you want to reach those 5 people, and they happen to be literally 5 people, there was this company called C.H. Krishnan who imported chips. They wanted to reach one person, and that person was called the Department of Electronics. They said, all we want is a magazine, a medium which says that we exist and we are credible. And for that one person, which is the Department of Electronics, and we made sure that those 20 copies went to all the joint secretaries over there. They gave us a double spread. They said, just reach that one organization. So, this is the power of understanding what the buyer wants. Traditionally, people say that, look, what is the circulation of it? It's nonsense. All this thing is, what is the circulation is, see, it's like they say, it's not important how many people you know, it's who you know. So I was good at that. And I went and spoke to each person, manufacturer who was going to spend on advertising. And looking at the superset of what they wanted, I created stories that those particular buyers would buy. Whether it is CAD CAM, there were some 20 people who wanted to buy flat plotters. Then there was this company, Hindutron, that wanted to sell plotters. So I got those 20 people on board. And I told Hindutron, see, here are the names of those 20 people. You want to reach them, you give me an ad. So my job was to do the marketing. Marketing was based on what does the manufacturer want. Next job was to create the product, which is to have the right mix of articles that the buyer, for example, in this case, the CAD CAM plotter buyer, wants, and then connect the two together. And the magazine became financially very viable. At the same time, another magazine was launched, which is called Computer, which was called Computer Computer Age kind of a thing, not the India Today one. Yeah, Computer Age. That folded up because they were catering to the subscribers. They said we should have articles like C++ and COBOL and whatnot. Now, nobody wants to read that nonsense. Okay, so the magazine was financially viable and succeeded. Slowly, we were rolling in money. Then Pradeep Gupta came up with very bright ideas. For example, his one idea was, and all our ideas were from what is succeeding in foreign publications.
So then what would you say was the reaction of the industry, the influence? What kind of change, it's like, what kind of change do you think DataQuest made in the 80s to the industry? I
Okay.
mean, I'd say DataQuest not been there. then how would everyone have
Then
been poorer?
in those early days, simply put, vendors would not have been in touch with customers. We were in touch with
Right.
customers, the vendors were not. We used to replay the voice of the customers, we used to listen to the customers, tell the vendors that, look, here's what the customer wants objectively. And vendors used to then create their products or whatever, package their products or position their products accordingly. So we were, to my mind, reasonably instrumental in making the vendors succeed in the early 80s, in the mid 80s.
What about you talked about you interacted with the government, you sent the copies to the undersecretaries. So what was the government reaction? Did they like how seriously did they take DataQuest? How did the DataQuest, its vision and policy shape uh,
And
their
they had
thinking?
nothing to do
Okay,
apart from read something in the day.
okay,
So they took up, and this magazine was coming to them free. And otherwise, the procurement product process for a 72 rupees so rupee magazine would have been a long time. So we used to just go and we leave it on their desk. You know, everybody was 20 something in the organization. So it was very easy. Nobody stopped us. We used to go with a bunch of magazines and leave it on people's desks. And they used to have nothing to do. At that time, they were real babus. And they used to just read them, flip through them. And then one day, there was a Dr. Sheshagiri, a great guy. He was shaping the first Indian computer policy of 1984. And he wanted to dictate it to somebody. And who better than an editor who could proofread and write? So he called me, he says, come over. And he dictated whatever he wanted to. He says, why don't you ask questions? And I asked pretty intelligent questions. I said, okay, what will the import duty be? What will the maximum disk size be? And he kept answering. And there was an 18-page computer policy that was dictated and interviewed. It was actually, I interviewed him, pretty reasonably good interview. And that came out. And that was published, and that was the only place where it was documented. And sure enough, uh, that was read by the vendors, and many people went up in arms. There were, big vendors, I don't want to name them, who went and reported to some ministers this is nonsense. By allowing imports of computers in December 2000 and, 1984, you have killed our R&D that we have been doing on your behalf, on your say, for the last 10 years. And who's going to pay for them? Because all these computers are coming now straight away in CKD condition. And the government then immediately clamped down and said, now we'll have this policy in greatly diluted form. So that was that.
so it
So
wasn't.
data
Oh yeah,
quest, yes,
right.
was instrumental because I knew how to type.
Oh my God. No, no, but still, this is quite fascinating. So I guess it was not just there was a certain amount of ignorance and opposition also then out there. So do you have any more instances like this where it generated
Yes,
controversy, or
yes,
if you can
yes,
just
yes.
talk about them?
So, see, the minister tells the Department of Electronics, this is nonsense. You've got to stop this. Who asked you to come up with such a policy? Now they have to save face. So one day, the person who had decided that policy, he called on the phone. And he said, what is the maximum disk size, hard disk size, that is available in the world? So I checked something, I checked whatever data I had, and I said 300 MB. So the policy had a fine print at the end which says computers can be imported provided they are imported with a hard disk of at least 300 MB. So there goes your computer imports. Nobody could import computers after that. So that's how policies in this country were decided at that time.
So another thing is, so how long were you there in DataQuest? So by the time you left, what was the change in the industry, in people's reaction from when you joined DataQuest to when you left DataQuest? Because I'm sure a lot must have happened during that time.
Okay, the first thing that had happened was that I knew everybody in the industry on good terms. By everybody, I mean if there were 500 people in the industry, I knew 450 on good terms because, see, our success, Pradeep Gupta and mine, was based completely on the basis of understanding the needs of these 500 people entirely. The success of DataQuest was only this. We understood people's needs and we created things that catered to those needs. So, but Pradeep and I, we were very good at networking. And we just networked the hell out of this industry. And we put together those people who were networking. And they loved it because people are shy. They don't go out. We went out.
And maybe one final question, like looking back 40 years, how do you think like DataQuest changed your life, your career, and how did it change the Indian IT industry, and how did it change India? If you know, one by one, if you could, it would be interesting to know.
So, firstly, how did it change my life? Completely. Those 450 people, I went back to them in the year 1989, which was 7 years, oh, sorry, 4 years after I left Database. And I started saying, what are your needs? See, my question is very simple. First, find the guy who has money. Next, go to him. Okay, what is your problem? What are your needs? Then say, okay, that particular need I can fulfill. And if I fulfill that, I would be able to do that. Would you be able to play X price? And if we can, well, I've got a business. So I started this media relations business because their need was that in a technology company, you always need customers to be influenced into understanding that your technology is the greatest thing that has happened in the world. So I said, okay, let me do the planning for you and the execution for you. And I started India's first technology media relations PR company. Because of these 450 guys, 45 guys became my clients because they trusted me. And they said, this guy will do it because he delivers. And that company became quite successful. Finally, it was acquired by uh, Europe's largest media company, Publicis. And I was pretty pleased, and they were pretty pleased. We had 170 people, and so things went out very well, and all because of DataQuest. Had it not been for DataQuest, I would not have known these 450 people. And one more thing, had it not been for Manmohan Singh opening up the country in 1992 to imports and foreign companies, I tried various things. Then I said, yeah, let me do what I want. Let me do what I really like. And I started doing humor, which I started writing comedy, learning about comedy, took lessons in comedy writing and joke writing, and started writing captions for cartoons. Now, those cartoons have been going around and people liked them, and you might have seen them. They come out in the Times of India.
So finally, then the impact of DataQuest on India and the IT industry. Maybe you can just end with that
Where
in
Pradeep
brief.
is best suited to do that because
Okay, no
he's
problem.
the brains behind it. But if
Okay.
you ask me the impact,
In maybe just a para or a line
it
then.
gave a sense of belongingness and identity to the industry.
Right.
By having a top 100 and 500, I don't know what you have now, people people belong, and people, it's social networking. It's social networking of a B2B kind. That is what DataQuest has done. Okay? So
Yeah.
DataQuest is really the social network of the B2B kind for the Indian IT industry. That is what they have created, and that is what they have always tried to do.
Anyway, thanks for that. That's a good place to end this interview here. That's quite an interesting take. Thank you so much for your time.